As reported, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz said that Germany, Great Britain, France and the United States have lifted restrictions on the range of weapons supplied to Ukraine. The Kremlin called this decision dangerous because this step allegedly runs counter to Russia's aspirations for a political settlement of the war. Ukrainian military expert Yevgeniy Dikiy says that there are interesting nuances. The question arises, do we physically have what to implement this kind permission with? That is, if we were simply allowed to use long-range missiles, then this mission, in fact, concerns the very few Shadow and Scalp missiles. Yes, we have them, but firstly, they were not given to us in such a truckload as we needed. Secondly, we actively use them, so it is clear that there could not be many left. That is, if we were talking only about the remains of Storm Shadow and Scalp and their probable use, then this is a so-so story. But if Friedrich Merz's speech is not only about permission, but about the actual announcement of the transfer of Taurus missiles to us, then this is very useful. After all, such permission, plus their 500-kilometer range, is a kind of hello to the GRAU arsenals. Hello specifically to the enemy's strategic command posts, he said. According to him, in fact, Ukraine has 3 groups of main objects on the territory of Russia that are of great interest to Ukraine. First, these are military warehouses of strategic importance, not tactical level. But just because we, with our own forces, with the help of our own UAVs, took out 4 GRAU arsenals, we almost halved the intensity of enemy artillery fire at the front. That is, the destruction of such objects really works, and this means that this direction must be developed and continued. The second is the blows to the circulatory system of Russia, the oil refining industry. For some reason, we write little about this, but, for example, in the Rostov region of Russia and in some of the southern Ukrainian regions occupied by Russians, gasoline is already available by coupons and with queues. At the same time, strangely enough, these coupons were introduced exactly 2 weeks after we hit the Rostov oil refinery. By the way, this demonstrates Russia's real priorities when it first saves on the civilian population and even the last liter of fuel that remains will go to the Russian army. But we must really do everything to make this liter really the last one. Finally, the third category of objects that are interesting for us to strike are critically important enterprises of the Russian defense industry. I would not say that I see now a very competent strategy of ours for knocking out such enterprises, but I would call such a strategy a bearing strategy. What is meant? The fact is that during the Second World War, a similar dilemma was already being solved by the Allies, the United States and Britain. They were then deciding which objects in Germany would be bombed by their long-range aviation. He said, Russian soldiers who are not ready to fight against Ukraine are forced to become deserters. It is a risky decision, but it could be salvation from Vladimir Putin's dictatorial regime. Journalists from the French newspaper Le Monde spoke with several Russian soldiers who decided to desert. Ilya Vitsla, 22, and Danil Akipov, 24, are among several dozen Russian deserters who have found refuge in Europe. They told reporters what they had to face in the war against Ukraine. On the front lines, I realized that the invasion of Ukraine was a crime against humanity, against a brotherly nation, so I refused to take part in it. Wietzler, who moved with his wife to the French city of Metz, told reporters. The publication noted that Wietzler and Arkhipov decided not to hide their identities. They are confident that Russian special services will search for known deserters less than those who are hiding. Journalists learned that Wietzler served in the army even before the Russian invasion of Ukraine. According to him, he wrote reports on fuel consumption on military vehicles in Kaliningrad. Nevertheless, after February the 24th, 2022, an order was received to send him to Ukraine. Wietzler admitted that his wife Anastasia immediately tried to dissuade him from going, as she is critical of Putin's regime. She reminded her husband of what the Russian army did in Bucha and other Ukrainian cities. The publication added that Wietzler was sent to Zaporozhye region, where he ended up in a mortar unit. He said that he was not prepared for this type of combat and his superiors regularly got drunk. The soldiers used this to influence their decisions and thus avoid being sent to the front lines. Those who refused were locked in basements. Wietzler said. The deserter shared that on July the 8th, 2022, he injured his leg when the roof of his camp collapsed. He was then evacuated for treatment and then given leave. He then tried unsuccessfully to quit the army. After much deliberation with Anastasia, we came to the conclusion that desertion was the only solution. Wietzler told reporters that in February 2024, he and his wife left Russia for Belarus, then flew to Armenia, and from there to Montenegro. There, the deserter testified to UN experts investigating war crimes by the Russian army. Wietzler later travelled through Bosnia to Croatia, where he filed his first request for political asylum. He then continued to Hungary, and in December 2024, he flew from Budapest to Paris. During the flight to France, Wietzler received support from the anti-war organization Aidait Lesom, which is based in Georgia. The second Russian soldier, Arkhipov, told reporters that he was most afraid of being caught by Russian special services. He stressed that he did not support Russia's invasion of Ukraine. If Putin wins this war, he will have carte blanche for further offensives. He must be stopped. That is why I deserted. Arkhipov said. The deserter said he was not going to return to Russia. He showed journalists his right hand, which was missing a little finger. The former Russian soldier admitted that he had wounded himself to save his life. Arkhipov admitted that on August the 11th, 2023, during the Battle of Bakhmut, he hid in the forest and pulled the pin from a grenade he was holding in his hand. This was his way of getting the chance to leave the Russian army. The pain from the explosion was excruciating. Even painkillers didn't help, but I felt free. Every week, my comrades intentionally maimed themselves. The officers who figured out this trick sent them to the guardhouse and then sent them back into battle, to certain death, Arkhipov told reporters. After being wounded, he was evacuated to the occupied Luhansk region and then sent to a hospital in the Russian city of Rostov-on-Don. Later, Arkhipov hid in the Russian Federation and then went to Armenia. Using a new Russian passport, he flew on a long journey with a transfer in Paris. This is how he arrived in France. Wietzler and Arkhipov told reporters that many Russian soldiers dreamed of deserting. However, they had to remain on the front lines because the army kept them in check, both materially and psychologically. Desertion is a disgrace in Russia, but we made the right choice. Other people should know that they can escape. Wietzler and Arkhipov commented on their actions.